solutions, and sustainability, and where students are prepared to lead a more resilient and just society. America's public K-12 schools are one of the largest public energy consumers, and they have a huge carbon footprint given their massive fleet, transportation, buildings, food, and waste. We are calling on the Board of Education to create plans to reduce their transportation carbon emissions by 2035, reduce energy use in all facilities, expand access to locally grown, healthy, sustainable food in school cafeterias, and increase opportunities for food donation, rescue, and composting, to fully incorporate climate and health public education in its schools, and communicate how students and families can prepare for the negative climate-driven health impacts of the future. Additionally, we are calling on the Board of Education to cut their greenhouse gas emissions by 100% by the end of 2030 and commit 10% of its received federal funds towards these efforts. Children will face a chaotic and dangerous future without significant immediate reductions in greenhouse gas emissions. The Board of Education needs to take responsibility on this dire issue, and it should not be up to youth, teachers, or outside organizations to have to carry out climate action and education within our schools. It's time to ensure all students have access to quality climate education and that the district itself adopts sustainable operations. I ask that all board members read over the resolution that we emailed, and I hope that we can meet to discuss this further. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Emma Pranger. Emma Pranger, you may speak.
Hello. Hello all, my name is Emma Pranger and I'm a freshman at Yale who's been working with the New Haven climate movement on issues of public health and climate change. And to this end, I'd like to speak to you about the importance of passing our Board of Ed climate emergency resolution. We are seeing increasing evidence of the massive potential for the education sector in the United States to fight climate change, starting with cutting its own carbon emissions. According to the Harvard School of Education, 94% of school buses currently on the road are diesel powered. By switching to buses that run on electricity, districts can help create cleaner air while also saving an average of $170,000 in maintenance and operation costs over the lifetime of a single electric bus. These buses are not only costly and contribute to fossil fuel emissions, but fumes and exhaust pose a serious health risk to students, placing them at higher risk for respiratory illnesses, including asthma. This is particularly salient for New Haven, which has the 5th highest asthma rate in a metropolitan area in the country, according to the Asthma and Allergy Foundation of America. Children with asthma miss about 13.8 million combined school days per year, and the cost of managing asthma at $3,500 per year can pose a serious financial burden to low-income families. Research conducted by the New Buildings Institute found that school building energy consumption produces emissions equivalent to 18 coal-fired power plants, costing US school districts more than $8 billion a year. The implementation of renewable energy in schools through geothermal heating and cooling, LED lighting, and solar energy thus holds enormous potential for emissions reductions. Further, savings schools can accrue from reducing their carbon footprint can be reinvested back into schools to better serve students. For example, the school district of Batesville, Arkansas, installed 759 kilowatts of solar energy in an effort to improve school sustainability and ameliorate their $600,000 annual utility bill. Since the installment of the solar panels, the district has reduced its energy consumption by 1.6 million kilowatt hours per year and expects a net savings of over $4 million over the next 20 years, with a significant portion of the energy savings going back into teacher salaries and thus further improving student outcomes. Given the substantial benefits of school-led climate action, we at the New Haven Climate Movement hope that the New Haven Public Schools will become a leader in climate mitigation. The proposed Board of Education Climate Emergency Resolution, which has been shared with each board member, lists general guidelines that the board should follow so that our schools can fight the effects of climate change in our community, with the aim that the school district will generate plans for a transition to 100% renewable energy. This is imperative for the health of students in the broader community. We thank those board members who have already been willing to meet with us and look forward to further productive discussion with members of the board. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Sofia Ripken.
Good evening. My name is Sofia Ripken. I am a sophomore at Cooperative Arts High School, as well as a member of the New Haven Climate Movement. I'm here today to vocalize my experience as a New Haven public school student and specifically our need for the passing of the Board of Education Climate Emergency Resolution. A common fear between students today is that of the future of their Earth. Growing amidst teens in New Haven and beyond is an anxiety for the stability of our climate, making it difficult to even plan out our individual futures when there's no certainty to our collective future. Climate change is not a weight that can be solely placed on the shoulders of us, New Haven students and residents, on us, New Haven's children. We need the city of New Haven to invest in climate solutions all around, but especially within our schools. We need to transition to electric school buses, transition school buildings to be more energy efficient, improve access to nutritional foods, and ways to sustainably dispose of it. Lastly, it is critical that climate education be incorporated into our schools so that students are aware of the crisis taking place in the world around them. It is a disservice to your students to do anything else. The Board of Education taking action through investing further can alleviate some of the weight which currently resides on young student shoulders, allowing them to focus on what their top priority should be at this age, their own futures. Investment in climate solutions today is investment in my future tomorrow. It is an investment in the future of all New Haven public school students. Please do not wait. Invest in our futures by passing the Board of Education Climate Emergency Resolution. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Wayne McRae.
Good evening. My agenda tonight, I have a non-disclosure item I wanted to present to the board. We're looking to have further discussions on these items of our MOU for illuminating STEM. I have a MOU set up with Terrence Sutherland from Texas. And we're looking to bring him here. We want to be on the next agenda before the kids get out of school for the summer, because we have a blurred program that addresses bullying. And we want to be able to get the support from the board on this item, if we can have that added on for the next agenda. And what we're trying to do now is to bring in the drones for the youth. So I know discuss more on these items if we can have this added to the agenda for the next agenda item. Thank you.
Madam President, that concludes the hands raised at this time.
Thank you, Dr. White. Mr. Golton?
Yeah, Madam President, I just have a procedural question. Has that climate resolution been forwarded to a committee?
It has not, no.
Okay.
Mr. Wilcox, and hold on, Mr. Wilcox has raised his hand.
I was just going to say it was a topic of discussion at a recent Finance and Operations Committee meeting, and will be probably on the next agenda as well, because many of the items are on the climate resolution do deal with things that are, operational. And then I think it's also been discussed in a food service meeting, because there's also some that are related to food waste, et cetera. So it's been talked about in some committees, but it doesn't have a formal home, I guess.
Madam President, could we give it a formal home so it could move forward the way most of our resolutions move forward? And I got to tell you, one of the reasons why I like to see this happen is that I've been advocating for several years now that we don't recycle. We don't recycle paper. We don't recycle anything. And we have these bins where we collect stuff to recycle, and then we just throw it into the garbage. I believe we might even have those huge recycle bins outside of schools to dump recycle into. But again, I don't believe that we actually do recycle, that it's actually mixed in with regular garbage. So I'd like to see us start moving towards doing some of the, I would think it's simple stuff like recycling paper, and move on from there, because these kids are right. We're getting dire warnings every week about our environment and what's happening in this world, and we all say we're concerned about it, but we're not doing anything as a school system to make sure that we contribute to reducing our carbon footprints. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Mr. Golden. Dr. Joyner?
Madam Chair, I think in order to not shoot in the dark, we need an update on what we're currently doing in terms of climate control. Because I can't, I agree with everything that I'm a climate control person myself. I recycle and I do everything I can around the home to reduce the carbon footprint. It's really a job for all of us, not just the school board, but for students as well. And for every human being on the planet. So if we can get an update, that would be helpful. And I think Mr. Golson is right. We also need to help students understand the process for doing this, so that they'll know what channels to go through in order to get it done. So if we get an update, and if we can also at some point when they come to a committee meeting, explain the process.
Okay,
Thank you.
sounds good, Dr. Joyner. Mr. Wilcox?
If it's the will of the board, I'm happy to take this on in finance and operations, both some sort of reporting on what we're currently doing, because there is several things that the district's been doing over the years in terms of LED lighting, switchovers and so on. So there is some things that are happening, and then also the rest of the climate resolution, and get it to a point where we can address it here and pass it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Okay, so moving on to the action items. The first one being the approval of the board meeting minutes for April 11th. Their motion to approve.
Madam Chair, motion to approve the board meetings for April 11th.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote on approving the meeting minutes for April 11th, 2022. Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Mr. Fiore?
Yes.
Mr. Goldson?
Yes.
Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well, and so the meeting minutes pass. Next is the personnel report. Dr. Tracy?
Thank you. Good evening, board. I have very short action item list. This is the shortest I've seen for a long time. 4 names, 4 teachers to be hired.
It's a little bit hard to hear you, Dr. Tracy. I'm sorry.
Can you hear me?
Sounds
You
like
can just
an
speak up.
echo chamber.
Okay, blame it on Dr. White. Okay, so I was saying good evening, board, and I have only very short action item list this evening, the shortest we've ever had for a long time. 4 names, 4 teachers we are hiring today. So there's only 4 names on the action items. I ask for approval of these items. Thank you.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes, I move that we approve the action items of the personnel report.
Second the
A
motion.
Second.
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, we'll vote to approve the personnel report. Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Mr. Fiore?
Yes.
Mr. Goldson?
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Mayor Elicker? Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well, and so the personnel Report passes. Next is the approval of teaching and learning overnight trips. Is that you, Dr. Joyner?
Yes, Madam Chair, I move to approve the teaching and learning overnight trips to Washington, D.C., Boston, Massachusetts, and Providence, Rhode Island.
Is there a second? Dr. Benitez?
I second.
Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote to approve the overnight trips. Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Mr. Fiore,
Yes.
Mr. Golton,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. And so those items pass. Finance and operations, Mr. Wilcox?
Yes. So I am going to make a motion here, and that motion is that we approve the one abstract, the 4 agreements, the 4 contracts as listed on our agenda, and that were approved by the Finance and Operations Committee.
Point of order, Madam President.
Mr. Golton?
Dr. Tracy has her hand raised. Is that a mistake, or is he trying to get in?
No, it wasn't a mistake, Mr. Golson. I was wondering if this is where we're going to put in the Eid, voting on the Eid change of date.
We will. Yep, we will.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Is there a second on the F&O items presented by Mr. Wilcox?
A second.
Thank you, Dr. Yarborough. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, we'll vote on the F&O items. Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Mr. Golton,
Yes.
Mr. Fiore,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. So F&O items pass. And then here is when we can, I guess, add the other 2 items, the Eid discussion and action, and also the graduation requirements. So who wants to make one of those motions?
Which one are we doing first?
Let's do the Eid.
Again, Madam President, point of order. Did I miss that at the beginning of the meeting? Did we amend the agenda?
Yeah, we amended the agenda to include an executive session, discussion and action on the Eid holiday, which is a change of the day, and then graduation requirements. You were here for that one.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Are we changing the date from the 3rd to the 2nd?
Yes.
I'll make the motion.
Go ahead.
Madam Chair, I'd like the motion to change the Eid holiday from May 3rd to May 2nd.
There a second? Mr. Wilcox?
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Golton?
Just a point of clarification. That holiday was that's a day off holiday?
Yes.
Yes.
And that is a holiday that was approved in the calendar that we just approved last week?
Yes.
No, that's last year's.
Yeah.
Last meeting, whatever it was, I'm sorry. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was an approved holiday on our calendar. Correct.
Okay, and that calendar was also approved by the union, and the union is okay with that date change?
Yes.
All right.
That was 2020, 2021, 2022 calendar when the board voted and having Eid as a holiday. What happens is that we have to be flexible with the dates that we set because it depends on when it falls. So this year it falls on the 1st and end on the 2nd, sunset to sunset. So we have to move it from the 3rd to the 2nd.
I understand that, but didn't we just approve a calendar about 2 weeks ago for next
That's for
school year?
next school year.
That's for next year. This one is for the current 2021, 22.
Oh,
End of-
so it's for next month then?
Yeah,
change
next
the
week.
date
Yes.
for next
Right.
week.
right.
Yes.
Okay, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Wilcox?
Yeah, I was just going to mention that it's been fascinating learning about this holiday, and that the date is actually an approximation when they plan it out, and then it's the actual observance of it is apparently dependent upon local religious leaders observing particular lunar activity around the beginning of Ramadan. So it's since we're going to have that day off, I would recommend that maybe having somebody send off to the teachers an explanation of this, just because it is kind of fascinating how the holiday can move once it gets close to it, and can change by a day or so from what they previously were forecasting.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Any further discussion?
I'd just like to say how proud I am of this board for being flexible and trying to honor all the various cultural organizations and entities throughout our community. I think that speaks loudly for our board, particularly when we look at what's going on in the country and in the world.
Thank you, Dr. Joyner. All right, seeing no further discussion, we'll vote on changing the Eid holiday. Mr. Wilcox,
Yes.
Dr. Joyner,
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough,
Yes.
Dr. Benitez,
Yes.
Mr. Goldson,
Yes.
Mr. Fiore,
Yes.
Mayor Elicker,
Yes.
and I am a yes as well. And so that date has been changed for the Eid holiday.
Madam President,
Mr. Goldson?
just another point of clarification. Next year's holiday is in the calendar. Is that date correct? Because I know this changes every year.
We won't know until we get closer to the date, because it has to do with the lunar,
Yes,
I guess, activity.
We don't know the lunar activity a year out. I mean, they actually don't know when the holiday is going to fall next year.
No. What we're hearing that it fluctuates.
Seems that way.
Times fluctuates. So
You know how the moon is, Darnell.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't know it changed its cycle, but
If we don't get this climate stuff right.
okay. Thank you, man.
Thank
Thank you
you.
very much for that.
Sure. Mr. Wilcox?
Yeah, I was just going to say that it is really fascinating as it involves when I'm looking at the Wikipedia entry here, the start of the lunar month varies based on when the new moon is sighted by local religious authorities. So it's we know when the moon is going to be in a particular place at a particular time, but it also has to be observed. And I don't know the mechanism of observation, if it has to be visual but it was a wonderful learning opportunity for me to learn about this more.
That's interesting. Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. Okay, and then I guess the next one is the graduation requirements, Dr. Joyner.
I have it right here in front of me. It's a little rich, so let me motion with the whereas New Haven Public Schools has a wealth of unique high schools with varied themes. All of our schools.
Point of order. Sorry, Dr. Joyner, but I think that Mr. Wilcox requested that this be on the screen while.
Yeah, he did. Yeah, thank you, Mr. Golson.
Thank you.
I'm working on getting it on there now.
Okay. I guess Aretha Franklin wanted a do-right man. We want to have a do-right school board.
I'll move it up as we.
Okay, so I'm not going to read it to you. You can read the first paragraph, which explains that our graduation requirements range from 25 to 29 credits and that all of our schools exceed the Connecticut minimum requirements. So this motion is to permit any student to graduate from New Haven High Schools who has satisfactorily completed a minimum of 25 credits, including no fewer than 4 in English, including composition, 3 in mathematics, 3 in social studies, including at least 1/2 credits in civics and American government, no fewer than 3 in science, 1 credit in physical education, 1 credit in fine arts or vocational education, and 1 credit in world language. Section B of this motion, any student meeting the above requirements minimum of 25 credit, but achieving fewer than the number of credits prescribed by their specific high school will receive a New Haven Public Schools diploma instead of their specific school diploma. This request would be for the 2022-2024 graduation only. The graduation policy will be referred back to the Teaching and Learning Committee and Governance Committee for a full policy review and action to update the current graduation requirements. That's the motion.
For a second,
I
Mr.
second.
Golton, Dr. Benitez, thank you. Mr. Gold, any discussion? Mr. Golton?
Thank you, Madam President. I'm assuming, but I probably shouldn't make assumptions, so I'm going to ask the question. Students who do not meet their school requirements but meet the New Haven Public Schools requirements will still receive a diploma. I'm assuming that they're still going to be able to participate in their school's graduation activities. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
The only acknowledgement is that they'll get New Haven Public Schools as opposed to specific to their schools such as Hill House, ESOMs, and the like. That would be the difference.
But they will participate. A Hill House graduate will participate at the Hill House graduation, and there won't be any mention on when they receive their diploma that they're receiving a different type of diploma. Is that correct?
Correct. It'll be as it was done last year. There were a number of students who were able to benefit from this, and no one knows any different. Everyone's name gets called. Everyone gets completing the same way.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. I see a hand raised for Teresa Diaz-Paez. Is she? Not sure.
That's our interpreter. I'm not sure if something went. I'll reach out to her directly.
Okay. Sounds good.
I'm
okay,
sorry,
so-
Madam Chair.
Go ahead.
Yeah, just wanted to ask Dr. White that when he sends this out to schools, that he adds the item with the that students will participate in the graduation. I know that you're doing that, but it'd be a good thing that what comes from us also reiterates that.
Yes.
No problem.
Thank you. Seeing no further discussion, then we'll vote on the special graduation requirements. Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
Mr. Wilcox?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
Mr. Golton?
Yes.
Mr. Fiore?
Yes.
Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
And I am a yes as well. And so that item passes. I just want to request that when we have items that we need to add to the agenda, if we know about them ahead of time, if we could please get out the information by 3 p.m., get everything out to all the board members so that at least they have some time to review it, if at all possible. Okay. Let's see. I think that's it for the action items. We have the executive session, but that'll be towards the end of the agenda, Mr. Wilcox. So we can go into the students report.
Hi, good evening, everyone. First, I just want to start off with the elections are coming out for the Student Board of Ed Rep. They're going to be from May 4th to May 6th. That's a Wednesday all the way to Friday. And I'm really excited for this year, and I think it's going to be a great competition between students who are passionate about serving their community. So I'm really excited about that. The second thing is I'm going to be visiting Metro as part of a discussion with students from that school. I would like it to be a new type of initiative for the Student Board of Ed members, if they can, where they can visit schools that seem to have problems within their community and with students that want to be discussing these problems. And I'll be visiting their school, I believe, this Wednesday. And I just wanted to share that, and I'll be happy to share my my discussions with them. I'm looking forward to that. And back to the beginning of the meeting when we talked about reading in school and how it's becoming a problem for younger students to catch up or maintain the standard reading level. I really think it does come down to motivation for students. I think our New Haven students are very smart, and I think they're very creative in their own ways. I work with 9 and 10-year-olds, and I feel like each and every one of them are more creative every day I talk to them. It really is a matter of motivation. There's so many distractions in their world. It's an easy one to say, but phones. Every student has a phone now. The computers that we give them, they do play games on them a lot. So it really is just down to motivation and finding a place for them to be dedicated in reading. And that concludes my report. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fiore. Any comments or questions for Mr. Fiore? Okay. Teaching and learning report, Dr. Joyner.
Yes, thank you very much. I want to commend Anthony for all the work he's done behind the scenes to solicit student input. I got a chance to go over to HSC and meet with him briefly when I took him some books that I had ordered for he and Mashai. And Anthony, I really think that you are on your way to becoming a great leader. You have the intellect, the ethics, courage, and energy to do that. And I'm looking forward to watching you grow and flourish at UConn. You come from good stock, buddy. Talk to your father. What I want to talk about tonight is a continuation of what I started talking about last meeting. That the learning community that we're trying to create is not just a function of what teachers do in classrooms, but kids are learning all the time. They're learning at home. They're learning on the bus on the way to school. They're learning when they watch television, when they read, when they do social media. And if we're going to really get the results that we want from kids, everyone will have to participate in the teaching and learning process, including the students themselves. At the last meeting, I talked about what our HR department and what our superintendent and the board wants in terms of the people that we put in front of kids. And we talked about the fact that they have to be certified, competent, have high character, be committed, have courage, be cognizant of the environment that they're working in. And that we want a diverse force. And I think we have that. I really believe that based on the national attention we've gotten, and that we've had so many teachers in our district that are teachers of the year, and we have a lot more that haven't been teachers of the year, that haven't been recognized, but that we know are phenomenal teachers. And so the second part of this report, we'll be talking about the behavior that we expect from students. We certainly have standards for our staff, and we also have mechanisms in place to evaluate staff and to recruit staff. And of course, in order for us to retain them, I think we're going to have to really help the community understand that student behavior is a major driver of teacher morale. And so what I want to talk about tonight is a student behavior assessment instrument that was developed at Sacred Heart University for the student teachers. And it's the largest teacher prep program in the state. I guess it still is. And it was developed and actually tested in New Haven at New Horizons, which is a school that doesn't exist anymore. And in reading Floyd Little's autobiography, I was struck by how he and many other students that I know that have been successful have embraced these behaviors. So there is a direct line between how students behave and how well they succeed. And if we can go to the next slide of Dr. White.
Dr. Joyner, before you continue with your presentation and the slides, I'm going to hand over the meeting to Mr. Wilcox. I'll be listening, but I'll be in the car.
I understand. Thank you.
Because I know you're going to be a little bit, and there's no president's report for this meeting. So you can.
Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you.
So what the students identified, and what we confirmed with other examples of people who have successfully gone through difficulty and achieved, they identified 8 specific behaviors that are related to students doing well in school. And they are self-evident behaviors. The behaviors are evidence of themselves, and attendance is the first one. Dr. Lonnie Garris, the former principal at Hill House, the longest serving principal at Hill House, did his dissertation on student achievement, on student attendance, and the relationship between attendance and achievement. And by the way, these behaviors are also related to doing well in one's job, not just in school, because education should be preparation for life. So attendance just simply says the student is present in the school and classroom unless there's a legitimate reason for absenteeism. And the reason we had to say classroom is because many high school students come to school, but they don't go to every class. And that's been the case for as long as I can remember. And then, of course, the second part of the slide, Dr. Garris said, we cannot educate an empty seat. And the school is not the prime driver for attendance. The student and the family is more responsible for attendance than the school is. Next slide, please. The second one, and William James, the father of American psychology, used to say repeatedly, in order for something to be learned, attention must be paid. And so attention is behavior related to the student focusing on classroom work and the student not being easily distracted. Anthony mentioned cell phones. There are lots of distractors that are visible, and then there are invisible distractors about what, for instance, what I read on Facebook last night, or what I saw on Snapchat, on Twitter, and whatever. And those things are in the student's head, and they get in the way of attention. And clearly, attention is something that is necessary in order for learning to take place, and the ability to pay attention to the work that's being given and to not be easily distracted is the next A. Next slide, please. This is really important. And this is not only important for a classroom, it's important for the world. Cooperation really is the basis for almost all human achievement. In fact, I'll venture to say that it's the basis for all human achievement. And in the case of an individual student, this is a behavior where the student follows reasonable directives from the teacher and staff and demonstrates respectful behavior toward members of the school community, all members of the school community. And it's reciprocal. Just as we expect students to be reasonable and respectful towards staff, we should expect staff to be reasonable and respectful towards students. It really is reciprocal. And it's really grounded in the golden rule. What you would want for yourself, you should want for others. What you would find hateful if done to you, you shouldn't do to others. And that's a basic tenet of living in a humane society, which means that you don't discriminate against people on the basis of anything that they have no control over: their color, their orientation, whether they're heavy or light, whether they're tall or short, that there's a large respect. It's the beloved community that Dr. King talked about in his letters from a Birmingham jail and just about everything else that he wrote. The next slide. Task willingness. I grew up in an agricultural community. I had to pick cotton, crop tobacco, shake pecans out of trees, pick cucumbers, just about everything that you eat, catch chickens. Another one of my friends grew up in an environment where she had outdoor plumbing, and I did as well. But she was able to overcome all of that because she was willing to do the tasks that were assigned her. In fact, at one point, I think you might get a chance to hear Jim and Joseph tell you how she responded to her first grade teacher when the teacher said, "We were able to overthrow colonialism, but you're going to have to be the ones to build this country." And I think that that's the same thing that we have to ask of our students about climate control, about civility, about honest and truth in government, that we're going to have to work very efficiently on those ideals. And we can't waste a whole lot of effort that does not contribute to that. So in the case of a classroom context, the student works efficiently on assigned tasks and wastes little effort on actions that do not contribute to individual or classroom success. And if you've been in the classroom, you know what those things are that don't contribute to classroom success. Fights certainly don't. Insults certainly don't. Coming to school ill-prepared don't. Being disrespectful to your peers and to your teachers don't. And being disrespectful to your parents don't. So that also relates to cooperation and the golden rule. The next one, please. Intention. The student exhibits behavior that indicates a value and appreciation for the opportunity to learn. One of the reasons that Oprah Winfrey didn't spend a whole lot of money on American education and built the school in South Africa is that she said that those kids have to go through a minefield to get to school. We have free education, we have free public libraries. We have a whole lot of opportunities for our students if they're willing to take advantage of it and have the right intentions when they're in the school. And you can determine a person's intentions by how they behave in the environment. And so that's a real important behavior that we have to zero in on, and we have to hold people accountable for. When I first started teaching, they also had students that were short without books. That's like a plumber coming in my house without his tools, or a carpenter coming to build a house without tools. And so I would do home visits and I would talk to their parents. And of course, their parents weren't even aware of the fact that many of them would come to school without books. But you need to come to school with your tools in order to achieve, and you need to come to school with the right intentions. If you bring weapons to school, if you bring chaos to school, then clearly you're going to school with the wrong intentions. And it's wrong to be that way. And it's not fair to the people around you. Could I have the next slide, please? Verbalization. The only way a teacher will know what you know or don't know is that you have to respond to that teacher, either orally or in writing. The great teachers don't care whether you're right or wrong, but they want to know whether you're right or wrong so they can give you feedback and you can get better. And we need to look at failure differently. Failure is another opportunity to learn more. And we need to create classroom environments where we drive out fear, drive out the fear of failure, and let kids know that the only way you get better is to fail. I don't care what you do, you will fail at some point before you get better. And so that means that if the teacher asks you a particular question or asks you to carry out an assignment, you do it. And that way the person can look at your pattern of success or failure, give you feedback, and allow you to get better. Next one, please. Enthusiasm and energy. You know, one of the I'm trying to think of the language. It might be Swahili, but the cry in the country once it got out of colonialism was kazi, kazi, kazi. Work, work, work. First place to look for a helping hand is at the end of your own arm. If you don't JOB, you don't EAT. And so what we need is for students to see the value of an education and demonstrate their enthusiasm for it by being thorough and prideful about what they produce in the classroom. And knowing that they can get better each time, that each product can become better and better and better. And the other part is the whole notion of endurance. There are people on this board who were born in difficult environments. I'm not going to call them out. They can speak for themselves if they want to share that. And they had to go through all kinds of trials and tribulation in order to get doctorates, to become teachers and counselors and administrators. And we all have burdens that we carry with us, but we have to endure. That's the only option. You have to endure. You have to keep moving forward. And we have people in this district that we've already hired that can help you if you're willing to allow them to help you. If you recognize the fact that the great majority of teachers, administrators, and staff in this district deeply care about the welfare of children, deeply care about the welfare of families, and they will go through all kinds of machinations in order to help you. If you look at what we've done over COVID and how hard the district has worked to bring food to people, to bring comfort to people, to bring counseling to people. If you look at what the mayor has done in the city, putting himself on the line to be out there in the fight, to try to make the city safer, to try to make the city a more humane place for all of us, and to be on the right side of every question related to fairness and justice for the citizens of this community. And so we can't do it without the help of our students. And the older you get, the more you're responsible for your own behavior. When you're 4 years old or 5 years old, then somebody else has to make sure that you get up and go to school. But when you're 15 or 16 or 13 or 12, 10 or 11, you know the difference between right and wrong. And the active behavioral model allows you to reflect on your own behavior, to determine how well you're doing in those areas, and for you to get better every day. And James Joseph Lunkman has tried out some of this with a few students in a few schools. And of course, we have done it. Many of the student teachers at Sacred Heart University did it, and it worked to a great extent because it was a way of students examining themselves and rating themselves. It was a way of parents rating the students, and it was a way the teachers rating the students. And it was an opportunity for the students to get better every day. If you didn't show up on Monday and you showed up on Tuesday, then that's an improvement. But the bottom line is that you need to show up about 95% of the time in order to fully benefit from what we have to offer. And you need to cooperate all the time. You need to go to school with the right intentions. You need to be tough enough, be just as tough at facing the tasks you face as an individual as you are in dealing with some of the other problems that you might experience in life. And you need to have the courage and the ethics to keep moving on and recognize that in the great majority of cases, the teachers are your friends. Your principal is your friend. The professional, the staff developer is your friend. The paraprofessional is your friend. And if you want friends, you have to be friendly. And so that is the behavior that we should expect from our students. We talked last meeting about the qualities we'd like to have in staff. And next board meeting, I will talk about parents and I will talk about the community. Because in order for us to create a learning community, we all have to do our part, every single one of us. And it only takes one person to mess up a group, just one. So I'll rest my case. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Dr. Joyner. Are there any comments or questions from the board? Mr. Fiore?
I would just like to say, as a student, to give his perspective, I wholeheartedly agree that, to make things work in the classroom, it has to be you, trying as well. In my perspective, in my school gives every opportunity to provide education and make sure that you're in a safe place. But it really does come down to the student trying themselves to be in a learning environment. Sadly, it's the point where, at least for high school students, the teacher doesn't have control over the motivation of a student, or at least they can help, but it truly is up to the student. And I feel like, I think that we need to make that more apparent to students, that teachers can only do so much in making you learn, and making you interested in what you're doing. And also a reflection of pride in one's work. I know a lot of students that just do the work to do it and to get the grade, not even a good grade, just to get a grade. And I feel like that's a poor reflection of themselves. And I feel like as a district, I feel like students can be doing better in that respect of pride in one's work.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? Or Ms. Joseph Lumpkin? Is it?
Turn your mute. You're muted.
Thank you. I just want to make sure the board didn't have any other questions before I jumped in. But what I wanted to add is that we know that all of our students are not there, and that these are targets for expectations for students' behavior. And in many instances, our students need a lot of help and support. But we do believe that there's optimism in this work. There's a sense, we know that our students need to persist. We know that our students have to be creative. We know that our students have to have self-discipline. And what I liked about this framework is that it recognizes that many of our students are there, many others are not, and that we need to put in the work to get as many students as possible to that target.
Thank you very much. Any other?
Matt, could I just say one more thing?
Dr. Joyner.
If you exported this framework to a job, it requires the same thing. So it's not just school, it's really you're developing behavioral habits that will take you through work. If you're in a relationship, it's the same thing. You have to be there. You have to cooperate. It really is, in many ways, a way in which you begin to develop good habits, period. And they are transferable to other contexts. And I really appreciate what Anthony has to say in Gemma, because Anthony is a student, and he actually embodies those qualities that we think. And I think what Jim Joseph Lumpkin said is that we know everybody's not there. I'm not there. I'm almost 75 years old. I can still do better. And I'll try to do the better as long as I breathe. And we all can get better. And if we all try to do it together, we can create that learning community and that beloved community that is so important in order for human beings to thrive. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Mr. Fiore, and then Dr. Benitez.
I just wanted to add on to something that I already said. It's easy to focus on the negatives of a problem. It's easy to think that everything's going wrong when maybe that's not the case. But I do want to highlight the students that are part of, being role models for the communities and actively engaging in classes. It's easy to forget that the quiet student, sometimes we focus on maybe the loud student who isn't participating or is distracting in class. But I would argue there's just as many or even more students that are actively engaging. So I just wanted to highlight the students that are engaged in the classes.
Thank you. Dr. Benitez?
I just wanted to say that I really appreciate what Anthony has said about needing that environment to concentrate and all that. And I'm glad that you added that, yes, there are a lot of young people who are meeting that expectation for themselves. But I want to reiterate for everybody that part of our job as a public education institution is to help students develop those skills that they need to be successful in this society, which is very complex and it's very demanding to our young people and even to our older people like myself. So I really appreciate what Gemma said, because it is important that our staff and educators recognize that. Not saying that kids don't have a responsibility, they do. And I agree that we need to remind them of that. But it's also important that us as the adults in this society help them become those people that we would like to share this world with.
All right, thank you. And thank you for the report and for the good discussion. Next item on our agenda is the superintendent's report. Dr. Tracy, it's your floor.
Thank you, Mr. Wilcox. I have a couple of items I just want to update. I want to say kudos to Gemma Joseph Lumpkin, the teachers and other workers who worked through the spring intersession to provide meaningful and engaging activities for our students. I just heard Gemma say a few words quickly as to what occurred during last week. Gemma, very quickly.
First of all, I want to thank board and Dr. Tracy for supporting us on this journey of opening up our schools during the spring break, and certainly our staff. I always like to remind folks that our teachers do not get holidays and vacations other than the ones that we provided. So to ask them to come back and work with our community partners, Clifford Beers, Farnham, and Justice Education Center it was pretty powerful to have about 20 teachers or so to agree to come and support the work. We supported about 650 students overall. Plenty others would have attended. Our focus there was to make sure that our students had hands-on work that's related to their school learning, and they had a lot of fun building things, asking questions, working on social, emotional, and mindfulness, and really connecting to the things that some of what Dr. Joyner talked about, looking at their behaviors, finding ways that we can identify some of the root causes, but getting those students to move forward. It was a positive all-around experience, and our students and parents gave us very positive feedback. So we were happy to be a part of that experience and in leading in making it happen in a way that has not occurred in the past.
So thank you so much, Gemma, for that. And the second item I have is just to announce again that this week we'll be carrying out a recruitment. I'm sure you've seen it on Channel 8 and other places where they're broadcasting our recruitment fair, which will be at the Hill House Athletic Center, Thursday, April 28th, 4 to 7 p.m. We are inviting our schools who need staff members to be there, and we are planning on at least get a chance to hire right on spot if we find the right individuals. So that's going to be a big fair, Thursday, April 28th, 4 through 7 p.m. at the Hill House Athletic Center. Now we get into having a couple of schools presenting. This is going to be part of my presentation every week until school ends, where we're going to bring in different schools to present to the board what's happening in their schools, because sometimes people really don't know, and who can say it best than the staff and the principals in those schools. So we have a couple of school updates. Barnard Magnet School with Mr. McCain, ESOMS with Miss Medria Blue Ellis, and John S. Martinez School with Principal Louis Menacho. And the first one is going to be Mr. McCain. That's how it is set up?
Yeah.
Okay, Ms. Hannons will be sharing the screen while they present.
So good afternoon, board. We're excited, as Dr. Tracy mentioned, to have 3 schools present this evening to you. We have 3 of our stellar principals coming before you. And as we prepare, they'll be sharing some of their best practices within the school. And they're sharing those practices with you tonight, but they will also be sharing them with the other principals during the assistant superintendent's meeting with principals later on this week. As always, all of our work is grounded in the strategic plan. You're very familiar with our mission, our vision, and you'll hear our leaders talk about our core values. You'll hear about equity and high expectations for students, a culture of continuous improvement, and fostering collaboration within their school. So we'll begin with Principal McCain from Barnard Environmental Science and Technology School.
Yeah. Thank you, Keisha. And I'd like to thank everyone for letting us present tonight. And we have a few pictures that we're going to go over first. We found, and Dr. Joyner, I think your presentation was right on, and I really enjoyed it. Anthony, your comments were really well done. And I think at Barnard, we found one of our major ways to get kids involved in schools through science. And we've really become this environmental science school that we were supposed to be, along with our robotics program. So you can see some of our pictures of our students getting excited going outside. We do a lot of science outside. If you start in the left-hand corner and just go down, you can see students getting ready to go out and do checklists with assessments. Our mud kitchen that we just installed this year, where our pre-K students are working in. And the bottom left-hand corner is what our courtyard used to look like. That's wasn't really conducive to learning for us. And you can see the new courtyard in the middle, where it's an outdoor classroom where kids are learning outside. All of those beds will be planted within the next, probably another week, and then we'll start planting all of the things that we're growing inside the school right now. You can see our kale garden that we had in the fall, where we actually gave kale home to parents and put that out. In the top corner, you'll see kids working on robotics. We have robotics classes. We'll be doing VEX competitions, getting kids excited to want to be here. One of our goals was to become a Magnet Schools of America award winner. We won the distinction award this year. You could see cucumbers being grown and kids actually eating cucumbers, which is the first time they've tasted that kind of thing. Our worm gardens and worm farms that we have that will be helping us with our raised beds. And just getting kids, a little preschool girl, getting her really excited about the environment and what goes on there. Our core piece is that vision isn't forecasting the future. It's creating the future by taking action in the present, which is what we do. If we build it now, kids will be there and want to be there and want to be able to learn. We've found that since we started aquaponics, hydroponics, outdoor gardening, and our focus, we've noticed that a reduction in suspension rate, a high achievement in reading and math. And you can see that, you know, in these things here that we're talking about, these pictures, the hydroponics units the kids are standing in front of, giving out the kales to parents to go home and try with recipes, the aquaponics with the fish that end up feeding what we're actually just about ready to plant, which is all of our lettuce and cucumbers, tomato plants that we're growing indoors through those systems. And we'll be doing a lot more than that outside. The robotics program that we've put in place, kids are really excited and really want to do that program. And when you get kids excited about learning, you're not going to have those problems that Dr. Jordan was talking about. They are tremendously reduced. You can see in the bottom last four slides that we have is about things that we're doing right now. So our whole plan is that if we dramatically improve tier 1 instruction to students, then that will decrease the need for tier 2 and tier 3 intervention for students. So if we get teachers at a real high level of teaching and get them excited about what they're doing, then you're going to see differences, not just with our data, but individual relationships they build within the classroom, the relationships that students build with one another. Some of the things that we really focus on this year, our strategies are to celebrate improvements, every little improvement. And you can see right here, the math fluency. You can see how that's improving. You can see the first two of the district assessments, and then we progress monitor. And this is, again, grade 1, but every little thing that we can do to celebrate, we do. Grade 2 fact fluency, again, continues to increase. And those are good signs. And we celebrate with all of the kids and the parents. And grade 3 continues in math also. And we're really focusing on our pre-K to grade 3 this year. We provide time for professional development with teachers. We do grade level team meetings strictly about instruction and data and how we need to improve. We do one-on-one meetings with teachers by the administration and by coaches to talk about kids in their classrooms. We model lessons by coaches and other teachers. And the biggest change we put this year is that we provide parents honest and accurate feedback about their child's abilities and levels. And then we give parents strategies to help their children at home. By doing this, we've linked in all the parents to the community, and we actually build a network that will show kids how important school is and the importance of school and how much better we're getting. This next couple slides is just about literacy and understanding. With literacy, there's just a multiple measures that we can use. I'm just going to show you some of the measures that we celebrate. This is just letter identification from one year to the next. The reason we're showing 1 year to the next is because we're looking for teacher improvement, not necessarily student improvement, but are our teachers getting better with tier 1 instruction, which then will lead to student outcomes that are getting better. And you can see that they do. In grade 1, the PSF, which is just talking about the sounds that kids will get and how they do sound symbol relationships. And you can see again, if we focus on tier 1 instruction with teachers and train teachers really well, they will get results from students. And that's another measure that we use. The next one is the ORF, and the ORF is something that we use where kids, again, with training from teachers, will definitely improve. And this is just about reading, how many words kids can get correctly in 1 minute, but we've gone beyond that because now we look at accuracy. And we found that accuracy is a prediction to the number of words that kids are going to get. And you'll see in the slide later on about how we focus on that. Another system that we use for multiple measures is just a benchmark assessment system. This is where students will read a book to a teacher. And then from there, the teacher will ask them questions. Meanwhile, the teacher is doing a running record of the student's data on accuracy and fluency. And you can see that, again, we increase. And there are obviously other measures that you use throughout this that don't have as great a results, but we really try to focus on things that really have improved our students. The last set is, this one is for grade 3. And this is an interesting chart because we do this for all of our small group classrooms. So this is a grade 3 teacher's data of kids that she has in reading. And we decided to use the ORF because that's the data that we had available to us. And you can see this is cohort data versus year to year. So you can see how these students did in first grade, how they did in second grade, how they did in third grade. And the BOY stands for beginning of the year. So you can see where they were in the beginning of the year. And then you can see the next two sets are the words that were read correctly and the accuracy. And you're seeing that as the middle of the year, the MOY, you see as students get more accurate with what they do, they're starting to get more words correct. And then in April, you can see it start to blossom. And these are one of our lowest groups that we've had who really didn't show much success for the first, second, and into the third year, but now they're showing tremendous success. And it really comes down to training teachers through tier 1 instruction and looking at the data closely and trying to find things in the data that we can focus on. And our whole thing is about a picture's worth 1,000 words. You saw some great pictures. We're so excited and so proud of what our students and teachers are doing. And we feel really comfortable about that.
Thank you, Principal McCain.
From John Martinez.
Hi, good evening, Board of Education members and Central Office staff. My name is Louis Manacher. I'm the principal of John S. Martinez Sea and SkySTEM Magnet School. It's my pleasure to be here this evening to talk a little bit about teaching and learning and how that looks like at Martinez. First thing I want to talk about is our school improvement plan, which is fully aligned with our district priorities. We focus on 3 specific areas. The first piece is meeting the social and emotional learning needs of our students. In the academic realm is really looking at our high population of L students. Roughly 50% of our students are classified as L students. And finally, our magnet implementation. We've done a lot of work to build a strong foundation in inquiry-based STEM learning. I think Dr. Joyner hit a home run when he talked about the attendance, attention, cooperation, task willingness, intention, verbalization, and enthusiasm and energy for our students. I think when you look at a school improvement plan, all of these indicators really hit home in our school improvement plan. It's really what we do as a school. One of the things that we are most proud of, and I don't have a lot of data to share this evening, but I really wanted to focus on our science. If you look at our students achieving at level 3 and 4 of the Smart Balance Next Generation Science Standards Assessment, 12% of our students scored higher than the district average, 43% meeting the level of 3 and 4. In grade 8, 7% of our students were above the district average as well. So a lot of the work we do is around our magnet theme. Our students study hydrosphere, atmosphere, space, and the human impact. Mr. Golston, you would love to learn that our students are strong advocates for the human impact on the carbon blueprint in our world. If you come to our school, you'll see that our kindergartners are actively involved in reducing and reusing and recycling things that impact our world. Some of the highlights and partners that we have, we've partnered with our Connecticut Science Center, Connecticut New England Air Museum. We utilize talk moves to increase student discourse. We partner with Columbia to design our magnet units using the UBD unit writing framework. And we incorporate technology in all aspects of our interdisciplinary units that were developed by our teachers. I think the biggest impact for us is the highlight. We were recently won the Magnet Schools of America School of Excellence, which we're very proud of. Ms. Hams knows that every year we apply, and we've been a school of distinction. So I'm very proud to report that we are a school of excellence. But it's what really hits home for me is that we were able to do this under very challenging circumstances because of the pandemic. So we haven't lost sight of our magnet theme and what it means for teaching and learning. So that's a really easy, small snapshot of the work that we're doing at Martinez. I think what really needs to be highlighted too is that the majority of our students, they're not only learning a new language, but they're also learning the content language, which is huge. And a lot of our work and PD that's provided for our teachers centers around providing that framework for our students to succeed. It's very complex work, but I think that we're finally at a point where all of these goals outlined in our school improvement plan are intersecting, and it's made work much easier. And just to go back to Dr. Joyner's framework, or what he shared is, you're seeing it. You're seeing very minimal disruptions in the learning environment at Martinez. And I think it's about all of the work that we've done in those 3 areas, those goals in our school improvement plan. I invite anyone to come visit our school to see us in action. I can talk about our school all evening, but I think that when you actually see it in action, it speaks volumes. So thank you for your time this evening.
Thank you, Principal Menacho, and we will move on to our final principal presentation, Principal Blue Ellis.
Good evening. I hope that during this presentation you see some alignment with what my colleagues have presented, what occurred, the comments during public comment, the New Haven climate change, Dr. Joyner, and so forth. ESUMS is a new school, as you know. We are in our 14th year. We've had 8 graduating classes, and we've already been nationally ranked. We're in the top 10% of the nation's best high schools, and we're ranked 5 as one of the best magnet schools in Connecticut. Our mission is that we're public college preparatory middle and high school that challenges students to imagine, investigate, and invent while preparing them for demanding STEM programs at the collegiate level. We have graduates who are at MIT, we have pilots, chemists, scientists, engineers, and so forth. One of the things that we do is we have yearly themes that help us focus our values, our initiatives, and our strategies. The effective school correlates research supports that great schools have symbols of who they are and how they do things. So for ESOMs, this is one of those things. Beginning in 2017, we started with the school-wide writing program in a theme of going for the gold. I also want to give credit to the district for giving us professional development on having a school focus. So taking that idea, again, the research of effective school correlates, and continuing once we get some good information, not just focusing on it for the year, but letting it remain with the school. So our school-wide writing program is based on Orton-Gillingham principles. We have 3 certified Orton-Gillingham practitioners, which is a high level of Orton-Gillingham certification. Of course, our relevant and rigorous curriculum. And we initiated something else in that year of going for the gold, ESOM's professional outreach program. We often get inquiries from around the state about how we do things, and other districts will come in and ask for us to share. And so we made a formal process where our master teachers can share their expertise in the district. We're a school that really values teacher leadership. The next year, we implemented the theme of Together We Soar, and it's now something you'll see associated with ESOMs, that tagline. Also in that year, we focused on global learning, our international trips. We've had 6 international trips, Global Cities Initiative. In our 6th grade, we do something a little different. It's an international classroom that focuses on global learning and the sustainability goals set forth by UNESCO that are aligned to the initiatives brought forward by the New Haven climate movement. We also focus on equity initiatives such as Universal Design for Learning, UDL. And so we've been implementing that practice for 6 years. We have cohorts of teachers who go through training, not just for a day, but training several times throughout the year, where they're able to work on their own curriculum and apply the principles of Universal Design for Learning, which really addresses our English language learners. It addresses students with IEPs, 504s, and just even non-identified students that might be struggling. Emotions matter, another theme that we had, that we've been a restorative practice school for over 6 years. 5 years ago, we moved to the Yale Ruler training model and implemented emotional intelligences. You'll see in some of our pictures here, celebrations, and also just regular check-ins with the mood meter. And then we've got other initiatives that go along with our themes: anti-bias, anti-racism work, the Harvard DataWise process that helps us with data-driven decision-making. The Equity Lab is a program where our students get college credit from schools like Yale, Columbia, the University of Pennsylvania. We're adding next year, Howard University, and they take courses like personal finance, social justice. And they're focused on kids who aren't traditionally targeted for AP courses. And so then there are other things like getting kids as we focus on SEL, giving back is really important at ESOM. So you'll see a drive at the top left-hand corner here. Having the best curriculum materials is very important. During the pandemic, one of our themes was to be champions of change. And we are constantly revising our policy. And that year, we revised our grading policy. This year, our big initiative that will move us from 2023 onward is a math equity plan. We're totally revamping our math plan. We've added this year an art therapist as an elective class, and next year it'll be a dance therapist, someone who is certified as a social worker, but also a dance teacher. Global learning topics like sustainability and public health. Being our best selves is this year, and we're continuing with our food drives, our blood drives, our celebrations, and our projects. We also have student-led organizations in support for the building. They run our IT department. Next slide. This project I'd like you to take a look at. ACEs approached ESOMs to help a student who had a rare disability, he needed a swing. And as you can see in the picture, they don't make swings that could hold, say, a first grader or a second grader. And as the student learned, they needed to sit in a swing where they could oscillate. So ESOM's Engineering and Design Development course designed a prototype, also went to look for the money and learn that whole process of getting a patent. That's the kind of thing that we do. We take on real clients and we try to solve real problems within our community and in our world. And you can see us here meeting actually with our clients from ACES and with our teacher, Dr. Ponchel, who was leading the team in developing this prototype. So equity, what does STEM have to do with it? At ESOMs, and because we're a magnet school and just a part of New Haven Public Schools, it's important for us to focus on equity. And so we address the digital divide. We have courses such as cybersecurity, middle school technology that will help students create things like podcasts to be able to present their information on solving world problems. AP Economics. We have 7 Project Lead the Way courses. So everyone at ESOMs is enrolled in rigorous study. We have a principal advisory board where students can give me direct feedback about what's working, what's not working. And we have a principal's business advisory board. So when we are looking at our curriculum, we are getting feedback from industry professionals about what we should be doing. Here again, I focused on the college readiness divide. Again, Howard University, the students will be taking courses on environmental justice. Again, aligned to the New Haven climate movement. Wharton School of Business, UPenn, personal finance. We are interested in addressing the financial gap that exists. So that opportunity gap turns to an income gap. The Grit Lab, that's another course they can take, which focuses on perseverance and success, as Dr. Joyner pointed out. Those are very important things. Next. A few of our strategies, again, universal design for learning. We focus on things like learning targets, like how are teachers designing lessons, writing across the curriculum, making thinking visible. You'll see a slide down here as our students are engaged in active and meaningful learning to foster critical and creative thinking. Our faculty is very diverse. We have a global faculty. We can focus on global learning competencies. Our student diversity is also very diverse. Our approach yields positive results. We are, again, in the top 10% of the nation's 24,000 public high schools, top 20% of all Connecticut schools. That's number 41 out of 556 schools, ranked 6th among all 47 New Haven County schools. Our annual average graduation rate is 100%. 81% of our students took at least one AP exam, 42% passed at least one AP exam. Our math revisions that we're doing to our math program should help us increase that. 67% of our students identify as minority, and this is directly taken from US World News and Report. Those are the rankings that I shared earlier. Connecticut SAT School Day. That's a big measure for all of New Haven high schools and certainly ESOMs. Our combined score percentile for proficient and above is 57.8. Percentage of underserved students who are proficient, 44.5%. Percentage of underserved students who are proficient is 61. So there's a small gap there. The gap between the school and the state among underserved is 0.5%. We have trends where our data is also showing that we are increasing our scores every year in terms of our SAT growth. And I think my time is up.
And we would like to thank our three principals. Give them a round of applause for their presentation and sharing best practices, as it gives you a flavor of what's happening in their schools. As Principal Menacho stated, and I'm sure Principal Bluelis and Principal McCain also welcome you into their schools at any time if you want to come see it in action. Dr. Tracy.
And so thank you, all three principals, for that great presentation. You've done a great job in giving a window into some of the things happening in your schools. What we're trying to do here is to change some of the negative narrative going around about New Haven Public Schools and students not learning. Our students are learning. And our students are motivated. Yes, we do have some outliers. We do have some dysregulated students, but we cannot allow that to be the narrative for over almost 20,000 kids. So many of our kids are doing a great job in school, and the teachers are making those great preparation to prepare our students for not just now, but also for the future. So we want to invite board members to go into some of our schools. Some of you are already doing that. Pop in and see what is happening. I'm always amazed when I step into some of these schools and see what's happening in the students' classroom, and especially Medra, she's always showing me, come look at this, what they're doing as the students work together. So New Haven Public Schools, we have a lot that we have been doing. A lot of positive things are happening in New Haven Public Schools, and we need to tell our story. So for the next couple of board meetings, we'll have our principals and sometimes staff come in and share what it is they're doing to help to accelerate or to accentuate the positive things that are happening in our schools. So we want to thank you so much, Medra, Lou, and Mr. McCain, for coming and sharing your time with us. We know you take some time to prepare this, and we'd like you to again share those with the rest of our staff so that they can get a glimpse as to what's happening in our schools. We're not wasting time, and we're not slackening up and say pandemic is preventing us from doing what we need to do. No, we're not going to be singing or telling that narrative. We're saying in spite of the pandemic, our students are thriving. Our teachers are putting in the work. So thank you so much.
All right, thank you. We'll move on to comments or questions from board members. First is Dr. Joyner and then Mr. Goldson.
First of all, I have a connection to all three of them. And they are living examples of those qualities that I talked about in terms of staff, particularly in the area of character and competency. If you look at what Robert McCain has done in a very short period at Barnard, you can actually see the physical changes. And if you've been in the building, you can feel the social and climate changes. And I'm proud to say that one of my favorite students at Sacred Heart was Pete Greco. And he is the robotics teacher, and I recruited him for New Haven, but I got close to Pete when he was a sophomore, and as well as his parents, believe it or not, at the college level. And he had to go through something to get through Sacred Heart, not because he wasn't bright, but because of what the university didn't do. And I said I wasn't going to leave until he graduated. Luis Menacho is he can do just about anything. I don't know if you know, he was a great baseball player when he was in college. And the first time I met Lou to talk to him, we actually got together on a Saturday to take some kids up to New London to play in a basketball tournament. So he was using his time to help the kids, and we put money together and bought them pizza. Those are the kind of people that work for the system. And Medria, I taught Medria's father, and her mother was our school secretary. And every single one of those kids are doing phenomenally well now. Her father's not with us anymore. I was at the last time I was with him was at a wedding when his baby girl got married. And all of his daughters graduated and went to great schools. His son is a top-ranking administrator in DCF, and he used to be one of my student teachers. And they all have first names beginning with M. But I saw her when she was in a building that really wasn't even fit for science, when she was in that space in Hamden. And she really is the founding mother of ESOMs. and deserves a lot of credit. And I think they all have a Harriet Tubman mindset. That is, they have to go down and make sure that they bring people up. But you can't have anybody in the group that says, I want to go back. That's a Harriet Tubman mindset. You can't let one person or two people ruin what you're trying to do for the group. And I think that's our challenge going forward. We've got to be able to go in our schools and help those kids that are disruptive and put them in a place where they can succeed. But we can't allow, if we want the excellence that you're seeing right here and the climate that Lou and Robert and Medra have created in their schools, we've got to work with those kids that have the most challenges and help them become active learners. And I know we can do it with the kind of leadership that we have. And Dr. Tracy, I want to give you a pat on the back because, you know, we're in board meetings now, we're talking about teaching and learning and character and stuff like that. We're not engaged in some of the conversations that we were engaged in a few years ago. And I really appreciate you for bringing that to us, as well as the leadership of the mayor and the other members of the board. Mr. Golson and I were pushing for this way back when they had 4 principals at Hillhouse. And I'm hoping that we can move forward and do even more because our kids really are diamonds. And we just have to know that and keep pressing them and helping their parents and their families to help them do better and to take advantage of these wonderful opportunities that didn't exist when I was in school. And I thank you for that. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Mr. Goldson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This question is for Dr. Tracy. What procedure would Dr. Tracy like board members to follow to visit schools? I'm sure she doesn't want us just popping up at the front door asking for a tour. So how would you like for us to follow through with yours and some of your principals' invitations to visit these schools?
Thank you for that question, Mr. Goldson. So one of the things that I prefer to have is that board members inform me that they want to visit certain schools, and then I would in turn inform the principals to expect a visit from board member so-and-so. I think that's the right protocol to follow, because many times they're in the buildings and they're busy doing other things, and they would want to be respectful to escort the board member around their building. So that's actually the proper protocol.
That makes sense to me. Thank you, Dr. Tracy.
All right, thank you. Next is Dr. Yarborough.
Yes, thank you. I just want to express my appreciation for the teachers and the leaders, principals here who have presented. I appreciate understanding what you do and how you do it, and also how things have changed over time. As I was going through the report, I just thought a couple of things. One, about the positive narrative of what's happening in our schools. And you presented evidence that, number one, our students are capable of learning. Number two, our teachers are effective educators, and our families and community partners are helpful and important in positive outcomes. And I really do appreciate the innovation and your attention to detail and what's working. And when I think about multiplying success, where success is not just kept to oneself, but it can spread to other classrooms and then other schools and other districts. Part of it is having success oneself, but then also understanding success. And I think in your comments and what you've shared, you really have walked through, what's working, why it's working, what adjustments you're making, and how things have improved. And then also teaching success to others. I think you spoke about being able to have teachers and others talk about, what's working, how it's working, and what you've learned along the way. So thank you very much for just taking the leadership roles that you're taking. and being so attentive to what's happening. And I'm very proud of the students and the parents and the other partners who are involved in these schools. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Goldson.
My hand never went back down. I'm sorry.
Okay. Any other comments or questions from the board? All right, I'll just jump in real quick and just say I thank you very much for these presentations. Thank you, Dr. Tracy, for having them done, and particularly thank you to Principal Blue Ellis and Manacho and McCain on this. It's really great to hear the good work that's happening in the schools, and also just please also extend to your staff at your schools that appreciation as well, because this only works because you all are providing great leadership in those schools, and that the staff is the ones that are also making it all happen. And that's every level of staff throughout the school. So thank you very much for these presentations and for the success on behalf of the students. All right, is that the end of the superintendent's report, Dr. Tracy?
Yes, sir, that's it.
All right, the next item on the agenda was the president's report. The president reported there was no report. So we'll move on to the next item, which is a Head Start report, which I will give and be very brief. We did meet last week as scheduled. A couple things to update the board on. The work is continuing on getting the space ready for the offices to move out of 54 Meadow, to move over to the Celentano Annex. I've already reported last time that they did schedule the Focus Area 2, which is coming up, which is the review of various parts of the program by the Head Start Regional Office. Staff is preparing for that. And then a final thing I wanted to mention is that the clinic is up and running, and more equipment's coming in, but they're already seeing students there, and that's also coordinating with the dental services as well. So this will be very helpful for us to meet the requirements that Head Start has for each of their programs for making sure that students' health is taken care of in addition to their education. So any comments or questions on that? Hearing and seeing none. Briefly, the citywide school building committee report. We did meet. The information is provided on the website, which also includes, as it does all the time, the extensive stewardship report. And so I invite everybody to take a look at that. Any comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none. Finally, the finance and operations report. We did meet. We had a brief meeting. There were no discussion items. We only handled the action items that we've already dealt with. So there's no further report. Moving on, governance report, Dr. Benitez.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you very much. Governance, as you know, we have continued to work with the CAVE manual that we acquired to update our policies. We also have, Ms. Stephanie Jackson and her team have completed the process of creating a guidance document for the transgendered non-conforming youth policy, and they have already reviewed it with the attorney. The attorneys have reviewed it. The principals will be given a document on May 11th. If we don't find that there are any other changes, they should receive it by the 11th. We should receive a copy of what the principals are given by May 23rd. then the other thing is, I want to remind all of you who are working on policies to please help us know where you are in that work and how we may support you, and when would you be able to send us any of the work that you have completed or would like us to review in our governance committee. We'll also be discussing the bullying policy and the equity initiative, and find a way that we can utilize that in order to address the concerns that students and staff and some of the board members have raised about appropriate language and language that is could be offensive and should not be present in schools. However, students have requested more clarity on that, so we are going to start the process of addressing that with policies that we already have. The other thing that we will be working on is on updating a heritage celebration calendar, and that will be a little bit longer than just one meeting, but we hope to receive as many input from any of the board members that have any information, like Mr. Wilcox already shared some of the information he already had with us. And that will be all for tonight. Thank you very much for the opportunity to provide an update.
All right, thank you. Any comments or questions? Hearing and
She
seeing.
should be Rookie of the Year.
What was that, Dr. Joyner?
Abby's off to, Dr. Benitez is off to a great start with that. And I'm gonna recommend that she and Dr. Yarbrough be Rookie of the Year. National School Boards Association.
Well, thank you, but I feel like I'm still waddling.
Nah, you're hitting it out of the park, both of you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next item on the agenda is the Food Service Task Group. Dr. Yarbrough.
Yes, thank you. The task group will meet next month. And last week, the Food Gap Committee collaborated to share food with families during the April break. So we look forward to that team further debriefing and also working on summer food distribution. So we should have more information to share with the board after our meeting next month. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'll just mention that it's very impressive what this group's been able to do in terms of filling these food gaps when the schools are out of session. And so it's a tremendous work by various people of the school staff, as well as these partner organizations really have stepped up. It's great. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. We did earlier in the meeting add an executive session. So I'm going to go ahead and make a motion now. And I move that we move into executive session for the discussion of confidential attorney-client privileged memorandum pursuant to sections 1-206E and 1-210B10 of the Connecticut General Statutes, and possible action on matters heard in executive session. In the session, in addition to the board members, will be, I believe, Dr. Tracy and Attorney Alexiadis. Is there anybody else? Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
I second.
All right, moved and seconded. Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll go ahead and vote. Mr. Goldson?
Yes.
Dr. Yarbrough?
Yes.
Dr. Benitez?
Yes.
Mary Elliker?
Yes.
Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. I think I got everybody. So that carries. We'll move into executive session. Keisha Red-Hannons has sent us the link. So we'll see you all on the flip side. looks like we have a quorum of board members, so we'll go ahead and continue. We are back from executive session. Obviously, no votes or anything of that nature were taken in that session because we wouldn't be allowed to anyways. I think we've reached the end of our agenda. And if there's a motion to adjourn, I'd be appreciative.
So moved.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. We'll go ahead and vote. Mayor Elicker?
Yes.
Dr. Yarborough?
Yes.
Mr. Goldson?
Yes.
And Dr. Joyner?
Yes.
And is Dr. Benitez with us?
She might not have been able to get back.
I don't see her, but the ayes have it, so we are adjourned. Thanks, everyone.
All right. Have a good weekend, guys.
Have a good one.
A good week, brother.